As I once whispered by the river, let me read it to you. If your mind is thunder, do not shout back. Put a bowl in the rain and let the sky do the filling. The softest breath can carry mountains grain by grain. When you move without forcing, you do not grow smaller. You become water, and water finds a way. I speak this slowly so it settles where it's needed, somewhere between your ribs and the window where the night is patient. I am Lao Tzu, a traveler who learned that peace is not captured by chasing. It arrives when chasing gets tired of itself. Tonight, seeker, borrow my current. If your thoughts are sprinting in bright shoes, let them. We will walk. If your heart is too loud, that is all right. The river knows how to hold a drum without breaking. You live in a world that hums like a power line. The phone blinks, the feed scrolls. The day keeps tugging your sleeve long after you turned off the lights. Anxiety pretends to be a helpful assistant and then steals the whole office. Do not bargain with it. Do not fight the storm with more storm. Instead, widen. A cup cannot contain a lake, but a lake can welcome a storm without shattering. If that feels difficult, congratulations. Softness is a skill. Imagine a small wooden bowl beside the bed. Choose one thought, only one. Set it down in the bowl the way you'd set down a warm cup, and allow the night to do the cooling. The wind tonight has no ambition. It is not asking you to optimize, network, upgrade, or apply all. It is simply breathing. You can borrow its lungs. Being water is not passivity. It is timing married to kindness. A reed does not wrestle the wind. It changes shape and remains itself. The anxious mind believes every wave demands a new identity. But the riverbed knows the truth. Waves come, waves go, and the ground does not apologize for holding both. If you are tired of arguing with your own current, step sideways out of the argument. There is a wider part of you that does not need to win. It only needs to flow. When I was young, I tried to outthink weather. I arranged strategies like tiles, all clever, all loud. But storms do not read schedules. I learned to put a bowl in the rain, one simple gesture that says, I do not control the sky, I will cooperate with it. If your mind is a courtyard at dusk, thoughts are children still running. You do not scold them into bed. You ring a small bell only you can hear and begin to sweep the stone path in slow strokes. The children watch. They imitate your rhythm. One by one, they lie down under the blue, listening to the broom. This is how unforced calm begins. If you need proof, check your jaw, your tongue, your shoulders. Did one of them just remember it could soften? Good. Keep sweeping. By the way, if you floated this far and this quiet river suits you, feel free to subscribe. Even sages enjoy a quiet crowd. Now, come back to the window. Notice the lamp's steady glow on the wood, the way shadows prefer rounded edges at night. Peace does not arrive with trumpets. It slips in like warmth, returning to cold hands. Give yourself permission to rest without earning it. Your worth is not an invoice. Tonight is not a rehearsal for tomorrow. It is its own small kingdom with no meeting scheduled. Let me offer a practice you can carry into any night. Become wider than the problem. Your body can help. Imagine you're a broad riverbed. Your chest is the valley, your breath the current. On the inhale, allow water to arrive from every hillside. On the exhale, let the weight of the day drift downstream. If a memory appears that makes you flinch, give it a leaf to sit on and watch it float past the bend. You do not chase, you do not drown, you host. Before sleep, name 3 small mercies from today. 1 sight, 1 sound, 1 kindness. Perhaps the sight is moonlight on a stair, the sound an elevator's sigh, the kindness the moment you refuse to measure yourself against a machine. This is not false gratitude. It is accurate noticing. Rivers notice everything and keep almost nothing. People sometimes ask where my calm came from. I could answer with mountains and courts, with dusty roads and quiet rooms, but the shortest answer is this. I stopped performing for storms. The world loves a loud solution. I prefer small gravity. When you choose fewer moves, the remaining moves grow elegant. When you speak fewer words, the remaining words learn to carry themselves. Anxiety will call this laziness. Do not argue. Let it tire itself out. It always does. If you must plan only this. When you wake, you will write one sentence that makes your feet feel less argumentative. One sentence is a bridge. The river will take care of the rest. I kept a few companions. Silence, a stubborn notebook, and a buffalo who chewed like a seasoned philosopher and often looked unimpressed with my best ideas. In the deep hours, I visited a stand of bamboo I considered a friend. I did not ask it for advice. It offered none. It simply stood there, hollow and strong, singing in the wind, only when there was wind. I learned to greet it each morning the way you greet a mirror that does not judge. If you need a ritual, find your bamboo, a window you open, a cup you warm between your hands, a sentence you write. Do it lightly, the way you'd open a paper door. All this I learned before the night at the Western Pass, where the road narrowed and the hills pretended to be sleeping giants. I was leaving. How far and for how long, no one knew, least of all me. My silence must have been louder than my steps, because a lone gatekeeper put down his lamp as if it had just told him a secret. He studied me the way you study a river you cannot quite hear yet, only feel. You are carrying something, his eyes seemed to say. I thought it was simply the dark getting comfortable in my clothes. I was wrong. He stopped me with a bow that contained more questions than words. He asked me not to pass until I left something behind for those who would follow. I had no intention of writing. Silence was heavier than ink and fit better in my hands. But the old man's expression was the quiet you have when you finally understand why the storm was never your enemy. He made a request I had not expected, and a condition that surprised even my buffalo, which is exactly why, before ink touched bamboo, and before I vanished down the road, the gatekeeper made one strange request I could not refuse, and that is where our night truly begins. If you're still with me, let's drift deeper into this thought. The gatekeeper claimed my buffalo gave better advice than I did, and the buffalo, in an act of outrageous professionalism, continued chewing, as if to say, obviously. The night was a bowl of ink, the road a ribbon of dust that the moon had decided to keep for itself. I was traveling light, a robe, a cup, a very unimpressed animal, and a silence that liked to sit in the front row. The lantern by the pass swung once, then settled. The old man held it the way a priest might hold a rumour, carefully, almost lovingly, because even rumours can burn a fingertip if you're not paying attention. He looked at me for a long time, not the way a soldier measures danger, but the way a farmer listens to the weather. You are carrying something, his eyes said, as if they'd been reading my footsteps from a distance. I pretended to check my sleeves for stones. The buffalo pretended to check the grass for philosophy. Leave a trace, the man finally whispered. Whatever road you're taking, others will walk it barefoot. Give them a path that doesn't cut. His voice wasn't urgent. it was steadier than the lamp. It sounded like somebody who had seen many travelers and just as many regrets. I answered with the only truth I knew how to carry. I preferred silence. Words often arrive like soldiers, splendid, armored, and somehow exhausted before they've even crossed the bridge. As I told a young friend, I said, and I read it aloud so it would count. When the world grows loud, write softly. The gatekeeper's face didn't move, but his listening leaned closer. He didn't want a speech. He wanted pages that breathed like the night. Write softly then, he said, but write. I tried refusing with dignity. The buffalo tried refusing with more grass. Dignity and grass both failed. Here is the problem with silence seeker. It is a perfect cup until someone thirsty appears. Then the cup realizes it has a second job. I had carried quiet across provinces because quiet had carried me first. But I had also learned what a single line can do when it learns to carry itself. As I confessed in my notebook, yes, I'll read it to you. Small words behave better. They don't kick the bowl. The gatekeeper wasn't asking me to build a palace. He wanted a footbridge, something a child could cross in the rain without losing their shoes. I could not ignore that image. It felt like a promise I had made long before the pass. You know this pressure in your own century. The bright screens demand a declaration, a brand, a grand plan, a 5-year arc complete with icons. Performance reviews dress themselves as philosophy. Apps ask for your soul in bullet points. You don't need a manifesto tonight. You need a page that listens first. Keep a small notebook by your bed, the kind that doesn't shame you for closing it. When the morning is still damp and the mind has not yet remembered who it is supposed to be, write one soft sentence, not a slogan, not a battle cry. A line you can walk without tripping. 12 words are plenty. If you need a rule, try this. Present tense, one verb, no heroics. Let it be a small truth that fits in your pocket. The gatekeeper, satisfied that I was considering betrayal against my beloved silence, set the lamp on a post and brought out bamboo slips, as if he kept them for emergencies that smelled like destiny. Write about the way, he said, with that inconvenient gentleness people use when they know they're right. I muttered something about the way not liking to be photographed. He smiled the way old men smile when they know you're going to do the thing they asked. You just haven't agreed yet. As I once wrote in a letter, I offered, reading it aloud as payment for my delay. The way is not a map, but how you walk when you are lost. The lamp moved a little in the wind, applauding. So did the buffalo's ears. I sat. The wood was colder than I expected, which helped. Cold limits melodrama. I breathed like a man who remembers he has lungs for more than arguing. The old man positioned himself at the edge of hearing, the respectful distance you give a pond when you want to watch it settle. I waited for large words. None arrived. Good. Large words aren't always dishonest, but they are suspicious at night. The first line that came was small enough to fit under the lamp without making the light nervous. I wrote it down. Then another, no longer than the steam from a teacup. Writing softly feels like sweeping a courtyard at dawn. You see the stones you live with. They stop being obstacles. They become the path. In those lines, I noticed what I wanted you to notice tonight. How a page can be a bowl. A bowl does not argue with rain. It receives it. If your mind keeps you awake, let the page keep your mind. Whisper what is true in the smallest way possible. I am tired and allowed to be. That could be one line. Or, I breathe like a reed and remain myself. Another. If the line embarrasses you, good. Embarrassment is humility with its shoes off. If it sounds like a prayer and you don't pray, call it an instruction to your nervous system. Your heart doesn't care about labels. It cares about rhythms that don't hurt. The old man did not interrupt. He let me listen until the ink itself seemed to be speaking, explaining what I'd been trying to say for years by not saying anything. He collected my slips without reading them and tied them with a cord that had been waiting for years in his pocket. Then he surprised me. He bowed to the buffalo. "Teacher," he said, and to this day, I'm not sure if he meant it as a joke. The buffalo continued chewing, which I have learned to translate as praise. "Leave more," the gatekeeper asked. "Leave enough for several kinds of nights, the angry ones, the lonely ones, the nights that pretend they'll never end." He was not greedy. He was thorough, the way a child becomes thorough when collecting shells. Here is your practice, seeker, distilled to its gentlest shape. Before you sleep, place the notebook on your nightstand and lay a pen across it, like a bridge. In the morning, before the day assigns you a role, write one sentence that makes your feet less argumentative. If the sentence refuses to arrive, copy one that feels true from the night before and change a single word until it breathes. Place that page where your hand will find it later. Let it be a quiet ally in rooms that invite you to be louder than you want. This is not productivity. It is maintenance, like oiling a hinge you plan to open every day. I did not intend to stay as long as I did at the pass, but writing softly is like lighting a small fire. People will feel it, even when they pretend to be cold on purpose. Messengers came with questions they said belonged to other people, but smelled suspiciously like their own. I answered by subtracting until only the useful remained. As I told a weary traveler, I read aloud before sending him back to his life. Do not explain the river. Point and let it pass. He nodded as if I had given him something heavy, though my hands felt lighter than when we started. Perhaps that is the best measure of a true sentence. It makes both people lighter, even if only by the weight of a sigh. Still, words are like boats. They help, but only if the water is calm enough to float them. The gatekeeper could not calm my water for me. Before I could write anything worth leaving behind, I had to settle the bowl I was carrying inside my chest, the one that tended to slosh when anyone said the word future, which is exactly why, before ink truly touched bamboo, and before the cord tightened around the first bundle of slips, I stepped away from the lamp to face the weather within and learn the shape of the storm in my bowl. There is a kind of storm that does not appear in the sky. It forms under the ribs, where breath tries to be a river and worry tries to be a drum. I learned to stop arguing with that weather, not because I became brave, but because I became wide. Wu Wei is not laziness. It is the art of right-sized moves at the right time with the right touch. As I confessed in my notebook, let me read it to you. Water does nothing, and nothing withstands it. Hear it slowly. Does nothing does not mean never moves. It means it does not waste itself pretending to be a rock. When the mind storms, it wants verdicts and victories. It wants to win midnight. But midnight is not a game. It is a field where light rests. Wu Wei is how you walk across that field without frightening the grass. Imagine the bowl again, the one you place beside your bed. You do not throw the storm out. You set it down in that bowl, not as an enemy, but as weather passing through a valley that happens to be you. A valley is not responsible for the rain. It is responsible only for letting water find the river. I once believed the cure for uncertainty was to think faster. That is like telling a river to be more square. Squareness is a fine quality for tables. Rivers are not tables. Seeker, listen. There is a softness that is stronger than certainty because it can survive change. Certainty cracks. Softness flexes and remains itself. When you feel the storm approaching, email drafts multiplying, career choices auditioning in your head, the word future banging its little drum. Do not legislate the sky. Adjust your timing. Shrink the move until it can be done gently. Expand the pause until your breath fits inside it without gasping. As I once wrote in a letter, let me read it aloud. The more you push the door, the more it stays shut. Doors are strange creatures. They value etiquette. Sometimes they need you to wait until the room behind them finishes choosing its furniture. Wu Wei is that etiquette. It is knocking once and listening. It is noticing whether the handle warms to your hand or stays cool. It is sending one soft message rather than 5 aggressive reminders to the universe. It is refusing to wrestle a river and learning to place a boat. Here is a practice that has saved many of my nights. Simple, specific, and small enough to fit into the bowl. Choose one decision that is rattling the cupboard of your mind and declare it a ripe in the morning decision. You may even whisper it. The night hears fine. Write one line. This decision ripens at dawn. Then make a little shelf for it. Turn your phone face down. Move the laptop lid half closed. Set the pen across the notebook like a bridge that says no crossing until light. Breathe in for 4, pause for 2, out for 6, twice. That is the whole temple. You have not failed to decide. You have chosen to let timing do some of the work. But what if waiting is the wrong move? The anxious mind asks, faithfully auditioning for the role of prosecutor general. Waiting is only wrong when it becomes hiding. You can tell the difference by the feel in your chest. Hiding is narrow and airless. Waiting is wide and breathable, like stepping back to see the whole doorway instead of crashing your forehead against its paint. If you must test it, add this. While the decision ripens, take one tiny action that cannot bruise anything. A 5-minute read, a single question to a kind person, a neat list of facts without verdicts. Then return to breath. Action has bowed. Timing now steps forward. I wish I could tell you there is a royal road, some thunderproof technique that keeps all storms elsewhere. There isn't. There is only the craft of not making the storm larger. When the mind begins its parade, regrets marching, fantasies waving banners, doom opinions driving the drums, become the quiet spectator who claps once and sits down. You do not banish the parade. You refuse to march with it. You remain the valley. Valleys do not chase clouds. Clouds are busy enough being clouds. This is not abdication. It is stewardship. You keep the ground you are, so that rivers and travelers can pass without getting hurt. As I told a weary traveler by the Western Pass, let me read that line aloud too. Move like a reed. Change shape. Remain yourself. At the time, he was certain a promotion would end his insomnia, and equally certain that not getting it would end his dignity. Certainty is an actor with a very small range. We sat together until his breath remembered it had more than one note. He decided to let 3 conversations ripen. No emailing at midnight, no negotiating with an imaginary audience. In the morning, 2 conversations asked to be postponed and one solved itself. Only the breath had moved. It was enough. You may be tempted to measure this practice by its visible results. Did the decision bloom by morning? Did the job answer? Did the lover text? That is like judging a river by how many bridges it collects. The measure here is the texture of your night. Did you keep the storm in the bowl instead of in your bones? Did you preserve the valley? Sleep is a visitor who likes rooms where furniture isn't constantly being rearranged. When your breath becomes the host and your thoughts become guests, sleep notices the invitation on the table and often accepts. Let us return to the bowl for a moment before we part. Lift it slightly in your imagination and tilt it toward the edge of the bed. See how the water glints. That glint is your capacity to withstand without stiffening. Set the bowl down again. The room does not demand anything more from you tonight. The mind will argue. The mind loves overtime. Thank it for its service. Tell it that the shop is closed and the baker will need at dawn. Then, if you need one sentence to sleep by, let it be this. Read aloud in a whisper you can believe. I can wait without hiding. You might wonder where such patience leads, what it gives and what it costs. Patience is not a tax. It is an investment in the kind of strength that does not shout. I learned that the hard way, in a room where winning would have been easy and therefore expensive, which is exactly why I once refused the loudest victory in the quietest room, because the door I did not push open to something better. And that is a story worth keeping your eyes open for, just a little longer. Tonight, Seeker, let's take Wu Wei out of the poem and bring it to your desk, your studio, and your kitchen table. No incense required, only attention. Wu Wei is not doing nothing. It is doing the smallest right thing at the most honest time, then letting consequence breathe. It is the difference between pounding a locked door and standing still long enough to notice the door opens inward. As I once wrote in a letter, let me read it to you. The more you push the door, the more it stays shut. Listen to that, like rain on wood. Pushing has its season, but most of today's trouble is not a lack of force. It is a shortage of timing. You can tell you're out of time when your shoulders climb toward your ears and your sentences forget how to end. You can tell you're back in time when the next move feels slightly smaller than your pride wanted and precisely kinder than your fear expected. Work first. A negotiation hangs in your inbox like a stubborn lantern. You have drafted 5 follow-ups and none of them smell like peace. Try the one gentle email rule. Write one clear, warm message with 3 elements. The real need, the simplest next step, the most generous deadline you can live with. Remove the little knives. No, per my last email. No, as I already explained. Read it aloud once. Ask, does this open a door or bruise a handle? Send it. Then do not touch the thread for 24 hours. Silence is part of the message. The other person needs room to locate their better self. Your restraint is the room. In the studio, creative force often arrives disguised as panic. If I don't finish this tonight, I am not an artist. That is a very dramatic way to bully a river. Sit with me instead. Picture your idea as a shy animal hiding just beyond the path. You won't catch it by sprinting. You catch it by softening the air. Close the file for 15 minutes. Wash a cup. Step outside and count 10 windows. Return and make one unambitious move. Rename the file with a gentler title. Sketch 5 bad versions on scrap. Or write a single sentence that begins, "This piece wants to be about." That tiny, honest move invites the animal to step closer. When it does, do not lunge. Offer a hand. At home, Wu Wei can save a conversation that would otherwise become a small kitchen fire. Your partner speaks with heat. Your chest prepares counterheat. Pause. You are allowed to be the bowl, not the flame. Name the moment, not the verdict. I want to understand, and my body is loud right now. I need 10 minutes to become a better listener. Leave the room kindly, not as punishment. Breathe where doors do not need to be right. Return with a question that begins with what or how, never with why. Why interrogates, what invites. The softest move changes the shape of the night. Leadership? Try subtracting your voice and adding your attention. In your next meeting, say less than you planned and notice more than you planned. Ask a concise question, then let silence work for you. Most rooms are allergic to silence. They rush to fill it with whatever is closest. If you can bear the quiet for 10 breaths, the truer answer often appears without being dragged. As I told a young friend years ago, and I'll read it aloud now, if you wish to hear the river, stop stirring it. Not stirring is not ignoring. It is trusting that silt settles when hands rest. Now, the micro-practice in full shape. The one gentle email rule as a template for Wu Wei anywhere. Clarify the real ask in one sentence. No second motive. Soften the edges. Replace urgency theatre with a real timeline. Send once. Do not braid 3 requests into one thread. Stand still for a set time. No peeking, no double sending, no quick bump. Redirect your nervous energy into a small, certain task. Rename files. Tidy desk. Drink water. Respond later from the wider you, not the tighter you. The body knows when you have shifted from force to flow. In force, breath lives in the throat, shoulders tighten, and time feels like a door you could break with enough wrists. In flow, breath falls to the belly, shoulders recede, and time opens like a curtain. Results follow, not always immediately, but more cleanly. A client who ignored 3 nudges writes back with clarity. A paragraph that fought you yesterday walks into the room unarmed. The conversation at home remembers it was about care, not court. You will ask, but what if nothing happens? Then you test again tomorrow with one more small right thing. Not the same push, another shape. Call the person who can actually decide. Offer 2 options instead of 7. Remove one demand you don't truly need. Wu Wei is iterative gentleness. It is engineering with humility. Adjust, measure, breathe, repeat. The world tries to impress with crescendos. The Wei moves in quiet deltas that change whole rivers without applause. There is also the wisdom of stopping in time. When effort begins to produce more heat than light, stop. Athletes learn this. Overtraining sells the illusion of progress and buys an injury. Minds are bodies that bruise. End your workday 1 paragraph early, so tomorrow has a warm welcome. Leave your friend's house before the conversation turns into opinions about opinions. Put your phone to sleep in another room. The soft boundary you keep tonight returns as energy you didn't have to steal tomorrow. Remember the buffalo? He specializes in unbothered presence. He chews like a monk ringing a bell with his jaw. When I am tempted to force an answer, I watch him and ask, what would chewing do? Chewing is patient conversion. Tough grass into useful strength without drama. Your version of chewing might be a walk around the block, 10 mindful dishes, a short stretch while looking at the most boring corner of the ceiling. These are not delays. They are kindnesses that keep you from injuring the door. If you want a single line to carry from this room to the next, let it be read aloud, simply. Right timing is stronger than right force. Wear it like a small stone in your pocket. Touch it before you send, before you speak, before you push. If your chest opens even a little, you found the moment. If your chest hardens, you found your pride. Pride can wait. The river is not impressed with noise. It respects shape. I promised you vignettes, not miracles. Yet the nights that followed this practice did feel a little miraculous. Not because everything obeyed me, but because fewer things required obedience. Doors opened inward. People answered from their better hours. Words arrived without armor. All I did was choose the smallest right move and leave space around it. Space is a collaborator most workers never hire. You can. And waiting, true, breathing waiting, taught me a secret I did not expect to learn in time. Softness does what stone cannot. Water keeps the calendar no hammer understands, which is exactly why, when I needed real strength, I chose softness and discovered how it quietly beats stone. Softness is not the absence of power. It is power that refuses to bruise. Hardness can look impressive in the daylight. Angles, armor, a voice that mistakes volume for authority. But at night, when the mind steps out of its boots, hardness shows its cost. It cracks. Softness does not crack. It moves. Water has no knuckles, and yet it writes its name in stone. Bamboo has a hollow heart, and yet it stands through storms that break thicker trees. As I once whispered by the river, let me read it to you. Be the bend, not the break. Hear the invitation inside those 5 words. There is dignity in bending when the wind arrives. There is wisdom in remaining yourself after it passes. Consider stress the way a valley considers rain. A valley does not petition the clouds for a different schedule. It widens. And because it widens, the rain stops feeling like an enemy and starts behaving like what it has always been. Water going home. Your nervous system learns softness from the body, not from arguments. So lower your shoulders 1 finger's width. Unclench your jaw as if you are returning a borrowed book to its shelf. Let your breath drop to the belly where animals keep theirs. Strength is not the held fist. It is the open palm that can still carry weight. In the court where I once worked, people loved to mistake stiffness for spine. They held their opinions like shields lacquered with certainty. But certainty is brittle. The way prefers spines that curve when they must and straighten when they should. Imagine a conversation that turns sharp. Softness is not silence. It is choosing the angle that doesn't draw blood. You can say, I want to understand, and my body is loud. Give me a minute to soften so I can meet you without breaking either of us. This is not retreat. It is engineering. Bend the beam just enough, and the bridge holds everyone. Let's turn softness into a practice you can do even when thunder is sitting on your tongue. I call it the 90-second wave. For 1.5 minutes, you agree to feel the surge without adding a story and without taking an action. Set a gentle timer if it helps. Step 1. Name the weather. Rage, panic, grief, spike. 1 word only. Step 2. Anchor the body. Both feet flat, 1 hand on belly, 1 on chest. Step 3. Ride. Inhale for 4, hold for 2, exhale for 6. Repeat. When a thought tries to put captions under the wave, say, later, and return to breath. At the bell, make 1 small choice toward kindness. A glass of water, a walk to the window, a sentence you won't regret. The wave always ends. You do not. You might ask, what if the wave keeps coming back? It will. Rivers do not retire after one bend. But every time you ride instead of react, you carve the channel a little deeper, and the water learns where to go without flooding the village. Your village is the people you love, the work you must return to, the body you borrow for a few decades. Softness protects the village. Hardness enjoys victory. Softness enjoys continuity. Which would you rather sleep inside? Let's test this in 3 rooms, you know. In work, the harsh email lands like a thrown stone. Softness means delay, not swallow. Feel your 90-second wave. Then reply with the smallest useful truth. No heat, no performance. In creativity, your draft feels wooden. Softness means change the grain. Switch medium for 15 minutes. Sketch instead of prose. Hum instead of fix. In love, an old argument arrives wearing a new shirt. Softness means lower the volume before you speak and aim your words at repair, not verdicts. There is a strength that houses 2 people in one sentence. Use it. People think softness equals permission for others to walk over you. No. Softness is a posture, not a welcome mat. You can bend and still say no. In fact, a flexible no often lands cleaner than a rigid. Maybe that collapses later. Try this line aloud with me, seeker. No kindly and fully. Feel how it closes a door without slamming it. That is bending at the hinge. The door still works tomorrow. There is a small, unimpressed buffalo in my memory who taught me half of this without speaking. He survived storms by doing the least glamorous thing, staying, chewing, breathing. He adjusted the angle of his body by a degree or 2 and trusted the rest to pass. That is softness in its earthbound form. A 1-degree correction repeated faithfully. Look for your 1 degree tonight. Shorten the argument by a sentence. Lengthen the exhale by 2 counts. Move the glass of water within reach. These petty mercies add up to a life you can live. Before we close, try the 90-second wave once right now. Name it. Anchor. Ride. As you breathe, imagine the wave traveling through you without stopping to build a house in your chest. Let it exit somewhere quiet. The soles of your feet, the ground under the bed, the imagined river beyond your window. Then speak this line aloud, like a seal you press into warm wax. I choose bending that keeps me whole. The room hears you. Your body does too. Softness is not an accident. It's a container. But a container must be empty enough to hold what arrives. Which is exactly why the next secret isn't about strength at all. It's about space. The cup you must keep clear so peace has somewhere to pour. If you're still with me, let's follow your wandering mind. Mine is arguing with a very judgmental teacup. It insists it's already full. Of what? It refuses to specify. That is the trouble with full things. They become proud of their contents and forget their purpose. Cups exist to hold, not to brag. Nights are the same. If your night is crammed with leftover lists and borrowed obligations, there is nowhere for rest to sit. Emptiness is not a hole. It is a chair you remembered to place by the window so the moon has somewhere to visit. People fear emptiness because they confuse it with absence. But absence is when something should be here and isn't. Emptiness is when something could be here and you choose not to force it. Emptiness is potential with good manners. As I told a student, and I'll read it aloud so it lands clearly. An empty path makes room for feet. A path cluttered with yesterday's furniture will trip even the kindest traveler. Your attention is that path. If every spare inch is stacked with commitments you made in a panic, How can tonight walk through without injury? Let's name the villain gently, the false yes. A false yes sounds obedient, but steals from your future. It is the sure you say to avoid discomfort, the happy to help you offer when you are neither happy nor helpful tomorrow, the I'll take it on that secretly means I'm afraid to be small. False yeses breed at night, when the mind is tired and trying to purchase peace with promises. They deliver the opposite. The way prefers clean no's and true yeses. Both create space. The false yes is a polite clutter. As I once wrote in my notebook, let me read the line. A path piled with favors leads nowhere very kindly. Here's how emptiness becomes power instead of panic. First, remember why we empty. To receive, sleep, breath, light, a new sentence at dawn. Second, empty by shape, not by force. A gardener removes weeds so roots can drink. He does not scorch the earth. We are keeping the soil seeker, not burning the field. Third, replace what you remove with nothing, not with a productivity hack. Nothing is the point. Your nervous system needs a clear table to eat in peace. Try the 3 false yeses ritual tonight. Step 1. Take your bedside notebook, the one that listens first, and draw 3 small bowls. Circles are fine. Bowls are circles that learn to hold. Step 2. Ask your body, not your calendar. What did I promise that tightens my breath? List 3 items only. Examples: the extra meeting you agreed to chair, the weekend errand that belongs to someone else, the message thread that eats your evenings. Step 3. For each bowl, write 1 release sentence in the present tense. I return this task to its rightful owner, or I decline softly and fully, or I pause this until next month. Step 4. Read each sentence aloud once, then close the notebook and place your pen across it like a bridge. No crossings until morning. But won't people be disappointed? Perhaps, but disappointment is lighter than resentment, and honesty weighs less than pretense. The way teaches us to be available to what we can truly carry. You are not abandoning kindness. You are making it portable. A half-resentful yes is a heavy gift wrapped in pretty paper. A clean no is a small kindness that arrives on time and does not require repairs. Emptying also means unlearning. Much of your exhaustion comes from identities that no longer fit, but still demand snacks. The reliable one, the always on, the person who answers fast. Roles are useful coats. They are not skin. As I confessed in a letter, here I'll read it. When the coat grows heavy, let the wind find your shoulders. Take off the coat for one evening. See what your breath invents when it has arms again. You might discover that less of you performs and more of you lives. That more is the gift emptiness gives. Let the room practice with you. Turn off one lamp. Put your phone to sleep outside the bedroom like a puppy that will be happier in the morning. Leave one shelf bare. Emptiness teaches by demonstration. Look, seeker, this is what not adding looks like. Pour out half the to-do list until the rest looks possible. If your teacup complains, thank it for its service and remind it that cupness is not measured by content, but by capacity. Space is not laziness, it's infrastructure for what matters. Before we close, I want you to feel the difference between quiet and hollow. Quiet is alive, hollow is hungry. How to tell? Quiet deepens your breath. Hollow steals it. Quiet makes you kinder. Hollow makes you grabby. Empty toward quiet. When you release a false yes, test the air in your chest. If you gain an inch of sky, you're emptying in the right direction. If you feel grey and agitated, you subtracted the wrong thing. Return it and try another. Emptiness is a craft. reshape it nightly. I will leave you with one more line, spoken softly so the bowl can keep it. Keep a little emptiness where peace can land. That small landing pad rescued whole provinces of my life, and it introduced me to a companion who modeled the paradox better than any court or scroll. Flexible, hollow, strong, singing only when there is wind, which is exactly why, as the room grows spacious and your breath grows low, I will take you to meet the friend who never answers yet teaches without fail, the bamboo I greet each morning. Every morning, before the courts of memory grow noisy, and before the buffalo decides where wisdom will be stored for the day, usually his jaw, I visit a stand of bamboo. It does not advise me, it demonstrates me. I watch the stalks hold their ground with roots I cannot see, and I watch them yield to the slightest weather as if yielding were a kind of smile. The lesson is not a speech, it is a shape. Integrity that hardens becomes a stick that snaps. Integrity that hollows becomes a flute. As I once wrote, let me read it to you. Stand like bamboo, rooted hollow, singing in the wind. If we practice only the root, we become stubborn. If we practice only the hollow, we become vague. But when root and hollow meet, the day can pass through you without knocking you over. You live in a century that sells mornings like miracle potions, alarms at brutal hours, routines that look suspiciously like part-time jobs, and checklists so ornate they need their own assistance. That kind of beginning can bully a life into looking impressive while feeling brittle. I prefer a ritual small enough to fit in your pocket and strong enough to move a river by a degree. A ritual is not a performance. It is a skein of sleepy threads you tie to the day so it doesn't drift. The goal isn't to impress your calendar, but to be companionable to your breath. The bamboo reminded me that repetition without drama is a superpower. It makes the ground remember you. Here is the ritual I give you, seeker. 2 quiet minutes that make the rest of the hour slightly kinder. When you wake, do not reach. Let the reaching world reach for itself. Sit up slowly and place your feet where the ground can meet them. Open the window, even a hand's width. Let the fact of air arrive. Put one palm on the sill or frame, the way you might greet an old friend without words. Feel the cool. Let it register not as weather, but as permission. Now breathe 3 slow cycles. In for 4, hold for 2, out for 6. Let the exhale drop through your ribs like a small bird landing on a quiet branch. Then name one true priority, spoken aloud in 10 honest words or fewer. Not 10 ambitions, not 10 inboxes. One thing that, if carried gently today, would make you lighter tonight. The sentence should be shaped like bamboo, rooted and hollow. Rooted, specific enough to stand. Call my sister and listen fully. Finish the page I avoided. Hollow, roomy enough that life can move inside without tearing it. Move my body kindly. Protect 2 silent hours. If you feel your voice tightening as you speak, the sentence is trying to be a parade. Shrink it until your breath can smile. When the sentence fits, place it somewhere. On a small card, a screen you won't hate, or the inside of your wrist with a friendly line of ink. That placement is the root. The space around it, the refusal to stack 5 more goals on top, is the hollow. I learned to trust small beginnings because large beginnings kept collapsing by mid-morning. Once, when officials wanted schedules dressed as virtues, I tried to make my dawns heroic. Heroism is exhausting before breakfast. The bamboo cured me. It performs nothing and accomplishes everything appropriate to its shape. It eats light and becomes shelter. It drinks rain and becomes music. Your 2 minutes are the same. Ordinary on the surface, shelter underneath. They train the nervous system to expect kindness. And a nervous system that expects kindness chooses gentler moves at noon, which protect your sleep at midnight. We call that cause and effect. The bamboo calls it swaying. Modern life will test your ritual. Notifications will clear their throats like impatient ministers. The mind will announce urgent ceremonies such as check all platforms and invent an entire identity before tea. Smile at these ministers the way you smile at pigeons, with fond refusal. If you break the ritual one morning, do not file a report against yourself. Rituals are bridges you can rebuild quickly. The point isn't purity, it's continuity. If you only have one of the 3 steps, keep it. Open the window even if you can't name the sentence. Breathe even if the air is stubborn. Or just name the priority and let the window wait. Bamboo is forgiving. It bends for a reason. Some mornings the chosen sentence will feel too small for the storm you anticipate. That is exactly when smallness is medicine. A big promise minces oddly under heavy weather. A small promise walks through. Say, "Be kind to my back," and you will remember to stand like a stalk, not a hook. Say, "Ask one real question in the difficult meeting," and you will notice how asking turns wind into music. Say, "Cook something warm," and your evening will shake a little rain from its coat when it arrives. You are not manipulating fate. You are offering it a clean surface to land on. There's room for humor here too. On mornings when my buffalo sighs at my seriousness, I add a tiny flourish. I bow to the bamboo, a shallow nod that says, "Teach me again what you just taught me." Then I bow to the absurdity of being a human who needs reminders to breathe. The nod loosens pride, and loosened pride accepts help from the day. If bowing isn't your style, pick a quiet gesture. Touch heart, touch sill, touch notebook. Or lift the cup and let the steam write a single letter in the air. Rituals like this are signatures you leave on time, so that time recognizes you later and treats you more gently. Before we close, let's practice once together. Imagine the window's weight in your hand. Hear the soft scrape of wood or the click of a latch. Air enters. No contract, no invoice. Read this line with me, aloud, so it becomes a living thing. Stand like bamboo, rooted, hollow, singing in the wind. Now speak your 10-word truth for today. Keep it simple. Feel how the body responds. Jaw, shoulders, eyes. If even one of them softens, the ritual is working. Place your sentence somewhere that will catch your attention like a friendly sleeve when you forget. That's all a morning needs to qualify as a beginning. Not fireworks, not a race. Just a window, 3 breaths, and one line that behaves itself. I brought you to the grove because I wanted you to see how quiet power organizes a day without raising its voice. Standing is important. Bending is essential. But there is another teacher waiting just beyond these stalks, patient and fluent in the language of calm movement. Ritual led to water, and water led to the practice that saved my nights. If your mind is still wandering, let's follow it. Like a leaf catching a ride. No need to chase or corral. A wandering mind is simply a mind that forgot it can float. Sit as you are, seeker. If you prefer to lie down like a dock, supportive, quiet, welcoming of water. Tonight we let the body teach the brain its mother tongue. Movement without panic. We will make a river of you, not to be poetic, though the river approves, but because rivers do what anxious thoughts cannot. They flow even while staying themselves. First, a sentence I once gave to a weary traveller. Let me read it aloud so the body can hear it. Let your thinking float. Let your knowing sink. Thinking, those quick little birds, belongs to the surface. Knowing, bone deep, slow, unafraid, belongs to the riverbed. When you mistake one for the other, the surface tries to hold the whole sky and capsizes. We're going to put the birds back in the air and the stones back on the bottom, and then let water be what it knows best, patient motion. Before the practice, a short map. Anxiety loops are the brain's way of throwing ropes around clouds. The more ropes, the busier the hands, the smaller the sky, and somehow the storm looks bigger. The body scan will do is not an argument with weather. It's a downshift, from sprint to walk, from shout to hum. Most nervous systems don't want speeches. They want signals, slower breath, heavier muscles, a spine that stops performing and starts holding. The buffalo, my unlicensed therapist, does this by chewing. You will do it by imagining water where tightness thinks it's the boss. Now the 5-minute river body scan. I'll pace it for you. Read once and then do it with your eyes mostly closed, the way rivers close their eyes and still find the sea. Minute 1. Banks and source. Let your attention rest at the crown of your head. Picture a quiet spring gathering there, a small pool of coolness. Inhale slowly to a count of 4, pause 2, exhale 6. On the exhale, imagine water spilling over the forehead, smoothing the brow. If a thought interrupts, place it on a leaf and let the leaf join the water. You don't throw leaves away, you give them a ride. Minute 2, brow to heart. Let the current drift down behind the eyes, washing the small muscles that work too hard to be helpful. Down past the cheeks and jaw, unclench. Imagine the hinges oiled. Water pools at the throat. Your swallow is a soft gate opening. It widens across the collarbones and settles at the heart like a calm eddy. Inhale 4, hold 2, exhale 6. If a story insists on subtitles, whisper later and place it on a leaf. Minute 3, ribs and belly. Feel the river broaden. With each inhale, ribs open like gentle gates. With each exhale, the water deepens. Let the breath drop into the belly, slow and warm. If the belly is shy, put one hand there. This is permission, not pressure. Imagine silt settling. The heavy particles of the day drift down and stay. That is your knowing, finding the riverbed. Thinking continues above, fluttering, harmless. Minute 4. Hips to knees. Let the water travel around the hips, smoothing tight edges. Down the thighs like a broad current around quiet stones. Knees get special attention. Every door's hinge needs oil. If there is ache, give it a wider river to live in. Pain that sits in a teacup feels infinite. Pain that sits in a river remembers it is finite. Keep the breath. In 4, hold 2, out 6. If the mind runs ahead to tomorrow, give it a leaf and watch how even urgent thoughts calm when carried. Minute 5, calves, ankles, soles. Current narrows, not as scarcity, but as focus. Down the calves, small rapids turning to smooth water. Ankles soften, feet become river stones, heavy and friendly to the ground. On your last 3 exhales, imagine the day's static draining through the soles, into the earth that knows what to do with leftovers. Then let the whole body rest as one river. Surface moving, depths quiet. Stay here for a few extra breaths if it pleases you. If you feel lighter by even a thumb's width, that is not placebo. It is physics of the nervous system. Pressure distributed across motion, intensity diluted by flow. Muscles that were bracing now, remembering the floor, has been here the entire time. Sleep often visits people who stop auditioning and start settling. You have just practiced settling, not as surrender, but as design. What if thoughts keep jumping back in? They will. They're paid by the leap. Do not hire them for management. Leaf them. And if a leaf sinks, good. Some thoughts are ready to become stones. They'll join your knowing on the bottom, not to trap you, but to keep your river honest. The goal is never an empty mind. The goal is a well-organized river. Motion above, guidance below, both cooperating without debate. To make this practice portable, tie it to a cue you already meet each night. Teeth brushed, lamp off, phone asleep in another room. 2 minutes is enough on difficult nights. 5 is luxury. 10 is a small vacation from pretending to be a machine. If you wake at 3 a.m., don't negotiate with the clock. Become water again. Start at the crown. Send leaves downstream. Trust the bedrock you've already placed. A last line to tuck into your pillow. Read softly so it doesn't startle the dark. I am a river. My depths decide, my surface drifts. Notice how that changes your posture from combat to carriage. The world will ask you for costumes in the morning, titles, roles, jokes you don't mean, armor that squeaks at the seams. Let the river teach you a better fit. Calm changes how we wear our masks, and that, seeker, is where we're flowing next. By day, the world loves costumes. Some are woven from care, nurse, teacher, parent, and some from theatre. High performer, always available, clever one on calls. None of these are sins. The way does not despise cloth. It asks only that you remember skin. Costumes protect, signal, and sometimes inspire, but they are stitched for daylight. At night, when the mind wants to settle its accounts with weather, even silk can chafe. This is the honest hour, seeker. The lantern is low, the buffalo is pretending not to listen, and the roles you practice begin to loosen at the seams. If you cling to them as if they were your ribs, sleep will treat you like a museum, worth visiting, difficult to rest in. Let me read you a sentence I once confessed, so the body hears it, and not just the mind. A title is a coat. The skin beneath still breathes. Say it softly. The coat is not evil. It is merely outer. By day, wear it with purpose. By night, hang it where it belongs. The hanger is called breath. Every coat in your life has a loop. Every role has a gesture of removal. For the manager costume, perhaps it is closing the laptop and placing the palm on its lid, as one would calm a nervous horse. For the caretaker costume, it may be turning off the last light and saying, "Enough for now." For the performer costume, it is allowing one sentence to be unpolished and letting silence finish it for you. Modern life multiplies masks with generous speed. Work persona, practice competence, slack bright wit, inbox valor. Dating persona, curated spontaneity, pre-approved tenderness, the correct angle of sincerity for photos that pretend not to be. Family scripts, eldest as bridge, youngest as spark, healer, hero, historian of grievances. Each has its music and its tax. The tax is not paid in money, it is paid in breath. If, at the end of the day, your inhale is a receipt and your exhale an apology, your coats have been sleeping in your bed. They are poor sleepers. The Wei prefers to fold them over the back of a chair and let the skin remember it belongs to weather, not reputation. Here is a simple shape for tonight. You are not required to resolve or rename your life. You are invited to remove what is not needed for sleeping. You remove jewelry to avoid bruises. Remove identity for the same reason. Try this. Sit at the edge of the bed. Place the day before you as if it were a robe. With your hands, mimic the untying of a sash. As you exhale, imagine sliding the robe from your shoulders. You do not throw it. You drape it with respect over the quiet chair. Then touch sternum with 2 fingers and read this out loud. Only once, but like you mean it. Tonight, I am simply a breathing being. The sentence is humble on purpose. The body trusts humble things. You may worry that dropping performance will make you sloppy or disloyal. But honesty is not disloyal. It is alignment. The person who rests returns kinder to the coat. The person who sleeps within their skin does not need to stitch extra armor to survive meetings. As I told a young friend in a letter I never sent, let me give you the line now. To carry every hour's mask into the next is to mistake theatre for shelter. Shelter is the thing that keeps rain off your bones. Theatre is the thing that persuades strangers to clap. The night will host shelter gladly. It has little use for applause. Consider LinkedIn armor, that tight smile and busied virtue. Consider the date night charisma that forgets to listen. Consider the family gathering where you're drafted to mediate the same argument that has been politely jogging in the circles for a decade. These roles are not lies, just partial truths. Your essence is larger, less concise, less impressed with itself, more resilient. When you sleep as essence, the roles take their rightful place as tools, not definitions. Then in the morning, you can pick up the proper tool for the proper task without cutting your hands on a blade you carried through the night. Let's make the practice specific. Call it the coat hook ritual. 3 moves, 90 seconds. Move 1. Name the coat you wore hardest today. Manager, rescuer, sales self, class clown, eldest diplomat. Move 2. Gesture the removal. Actually mimic unbuttoning or untie a real drawstring hoodie. Costumes love props. With the exhale, place it on a chair, a doorknob, a hook, even the foot of the bed. Move 3. Speak the night sentence. Tonight, I am simply a breathing being. Then lie down with the intent to remain uncostumed for 8 hours. If you wake at 3 a.m., repeat only the sentence and 1 breath cycle. No need to restage the play. Your nervous system remembers the gesture even in the dark. The buffalo, who knows about coats made from weather and not from tailors, demonstrates this ritual daily. He wears only what grass and time require. He does not audition for the meadow. He chews his way into belonging. When I catch myself narrating my own life to imaginary judges, I borrow his confidence. Stand, breathe, do one unadorned thing, and decline the rest. If you need a playful check-in, ask, is this my skin or my costume talking? Skin answers in sensations, warmth, heaviness, ease. Costume answers in slogans. Choose sensations at night. Choose slogans only if you must sell something in daylight. A final thought for this hour. When the mask is off, the face remembers the river practice we learned earlier. The surface drifts, the depths decide. Without a helmet of persona, your hearing improves. You catch the small advice of breath. You notice which thought belongs on a leaf, and you choose the smaller, truer move. Strangely, this quiet makes you more trustworthy in the morning, not less. People feel when they are dealing with a person who can remove their mask on schedule. Such a person argues less, edits better, and apologizes faster because their skin can breathe and therefore their pride can bend. Let me leave you with a line to keep near your pillow. Read aloud as a closing key. I am not the coat. I am the warmth it was guarding. Feel how that dislodges the day without breaking its buttons. Then speak once more the micro practice. Tonight, I am simply a breathing being. Let the room answer back by becoming 1 shade darker and 1 degree kinder. Without the costume's weight, the bed knows what to do. And in that lightness, something else becomes easier too, the choosing. When the costumes fell, decisions became less violent, which is exactly where we go next to learn how fewer, truer moves open the path like a door that knows you by your footsteps. I once tried to solve life by multiplying choices, arranging my hours like chess pieces on an ornate board, convinced that more options meant more freedom. Instead, I found myself exhausted before noon, as if every square demanded its own speech. Decision fatigue does not arrive with a trumpet. It is a soft thief, stealing a breath each time you ask your mind to vote on something that could have been settled kindly in advance. Let me read you a line I wrote on a night when my thoughts were pacing like officials with clipboards. The path opens when the feet stop arguing. Hear it the way wood hears rain. The feet argue when every step becomes a referendum, when the day demands permission for the next inch. Once the arguing quiets, the road appears as if it had been folding itself towards you the entire time. Fewer moves do not shrink your life. They give your life back its riverbed, the channel that knows where water belongs without consulting a committee. Your century adores offering you a festival of tiny elections. Do you want news now, or in 3 minutes, or from 6 sources at once? Will you wear the blue shirt, or the one that looks almost the same but claims a different destiny? Will you check the messages before breakfast, during breakfast, after breakfast, or while pretending not to have breakfast at all? Each moment demands a signature, and by midday your hand is too tired to sign for what truly matters. The way is not anti-choice, it is anti-friction, especially friction disguised as freedom. There is mercy in deciding early and once about the small things, so you can decide late and well about the living ones. Tonight, do something deceptively simple. Before the dark completes its work, tell tomorrow's morning how it will begin. Speak quietly, as if teaching a child to trust the road. Say what you will eat first. Say what you will wear without consulting the weather of your doubts. Say the very first piece of work you will touch, and promise it 10 honest minutes. You are not drafting a constitution. You are laying 3 smooth stones across a creek, so you do not get your feet wet before the sun has decided who it wants to be. When morning arrives and you stand, those stones will be waiting, and your feet will not need to argue. I know the rumor that floats through well-lit offices. Spontaneity is the soul of a good day. Rivers are spontaneous. They still flow downhill. Guardrails are not cages. They free you from the ritual of reconsidering what never needed reconsideration. The shirt has already been chosen by the person you were last night, when your shoulders were lower and your judgment kinder. Breakfast is no longer a debate. The first task is not a throne demanding kneeling, but a small chair that has saved you a seat. With 3 pebbles placed, the current pulls you forward without grabbing your throat. Your devices can become servants of this softness if you teach them how to be quiet. Give the morning a clean hallway. Let the first screen you see hold only what serves your first breath, not what stains it. Tell your phone to remain a sleeping dog until the window has been opened and the air has greeted your face. Silence can be scheduled, and there is nothing unspiritual about using a setting to keep your soul from being summoned. I once watched scribes waste an hour each dawn searching for brushes they had set down wherever panic told them to. We built a small tray and called it Today. They wrote more without writing harder. The Wei smiled and pretended not to. Boundaries speak the language of merciful predecision. You can say, with a softness that does not leak, that you are not answering messages after the evening has exhaled. You can say that you will respond tomorrow at noon and mean it. You can say what you can carry without dragging your arms behind you. These sentences look small on paper. Inside the body, they are architecture. They turn a house full of drafts into a shelter that remembers why it was built. When I finally learned to say no, kindly and fully, I discovered that many storms had only been waiting for a door that closed without slamming. There is a kind of thoroughness that is honest, and another that is anxious. Honest thoroughness gathers wood for a fire. Anxious thoroughness rearranges forests until the wolves file complaints. If you catch yourself trapped between nearly identical choices, do not worship at the altar of perfect. Choose one and let movement teach you what thinking could not. The river corrects as it goes. I have seen clever minds spend whole nights toggling between 2 shirts, 3 fonts, 5 answers, and wake up too tired to wear, to print, or to speak. The buffalo never toggles. He chews. Sometimes wisdom is simply staying with one bite until it becomes strength. Even rooms can vote for you. Place the glass of water within reach, so hydration stops being a hero's quest. Let the book you intend to read occupy your pillow, so the light knows its next assignment. Pack the bag that tomorrow's you has already agreed to carry, so no dawn scavenger hunts are required. Exile the phone to another surface or another room, not as punishment, but as a recognition that the smallest tyrants wear the finest suits. You are not outrunning temptation. You are inviting it to arrive later, when you have more breath to greet it with a smile that says, "Not now." Perhaps you worry that this gentleness will iron the life out of your days. It will not. It will iron the panic out of your mornings, so that your afternoons can crease themselves naturally, where the real work bends. You will still improvise, laugh, and change your mind when the world offers you a better truth. But you will do so with energy that used to be spent on negotiating snacks with your own attention. The buffalo approves of this currency exchange. He has always believed in spending calm to purchase clarity. Try it tonight in the simplest fashion. Close the laptop as if it were a sleeping animal you respect. Choose the meal. Choose the clothes. Choose the first touch of work. Say these choices aloud once so they become agreements and not rumors. Then offer yourself one last protection. Promise that any decision arriving after the evening's lamp is lowered will be greeted tomorrow, when your feet are less argumentative. The night is not a courtroom. It is a field where you learn to hear the ground again. A messenger once asked me how to go faster. I told him, and I read it aloud to make sure the sentence behaved itself. Speed without direction is very fast-staying. He laughed, then nodded the way people do when laughter recognizes its parent. The next day, he moved fewer pieces and went farther. He returned with less dust on his pride. Listen to your body now. If your jaw has stopped auditioning and your shoulders have forgotten the ceiling, you have already made several small decisions that cost you nothing and returned you to yourself. This is the arithmetic of the way. Subtract friction, and the remainder is a path. You do not need a louder mind. You need a corridor with fewer doors. The doors you keep will matter more. I promised you that fewer moves would open something rarer than efficiency. They do. When the feet stop arguing, silence enters, uninvited and entirely welcome, and begins to teach in a voice that does not bruise, which is exactly where we go now. A door I did not force, a room where I said nothing, and a lesson that arrived only because I finally had the energy to listen. Fewer moves revealed a room where the quiet does the teaching. There was a room where I learned more by keeping my mouth still than I had learned in years of careful sentences. It wasn't large. A plain mat, a low table, the ash of an old incense stick pretending to be snow. The window faced a stand of bamboo that made its own music if given half a chance. I did not go there to perform serenity. I went to see what remained when I stopped trying to impress the day. The first time I stayed for 20 minutes without arranging my thoughts like officials in a parade, I discovered something so simple it felt like a secret. Silence is not an absence. It is a teacher who refuses to raise its voice. In those days, the court mistook noise for leadership. Meetings were orchestras of cleverness, each instrument eager to be first chair. I often arrived with words ready like polished stones, heavy enough to look important. Then one afternoon, I walked out before the debate began, crossed the courtyard, and sat in the quiet room instead. I put the stones down and watched dust float through a blade of sunlight. When a messenger found me and asked what strategy we should bring to the chattering table, I surprised both of us by answering, "None, yet." He waited for a sermon. I gave him a chair. We stared out the window until the need to win drained from our shoulders. Then we returned, and because my voice had been rinsed by 20 minutes of no voice at all, I spoke less, asked smaller questions, and left more space between them. The space did the heavy lifting. Listening did the leading. I had once told a young friend a line I kept for hours like this. Let me read it aloud, so it belongs to the air between us. If you wish to hear the river, stop stirring it. Stirring is a habit disguised as care. We tell ourselves we are preventing stagnation, when what we are really preventing is reflection. When your hand rests, the surface remembers how to mirror the sky. The same is true of a mind addicted to improvement. If you can resist poking your thought stream for a little while, the bottom shows itself. Pebbles of knowing that were always there, only hidden by your good intentions. You fear, perhaps, that if you are quiet, the world will outrun you. It will not. It cannot run faster than what is true. What silence reveals is not a new world, but a more accurate posture in the old one. On days when I stayed in that room before decisions, the arguments that followed arrived softer, the solutions narrower and stronger, the pride less interested in applause. I learned to enter a conversation the way you enter a garden gate, by touching it gently and noticing whether it already wants to open. I learned to lead by removing my voice at the moment it most wanted to perform. People mistook that restraint for wisdom. I did not correct them. I knew it was only silence doing what silence does, taking the heat out of the room until attention can see again. Your century has forgotten how to schedule quiet. It has remembered how to name it, which is not the same. Silent walks that are really podcasts in disguise. No meeting blocks filled with secret emails. Tech Sabbaths that still itch for notifications like a phantom limb. Do not be stern with yourself. The world trained you to stir. Tonight we will retrain with kindness. Choose an ordinary place, corner of a couch, the foot of your bed, the patch of floor by an open window. Promise that place and your breath that you will sit there tomorrow for 20 minutes with no goal, not to meditate perfectly, not to think better thoughts, not to become someone you can brag about, simply to let the river be a river. Make the promise concrete by placing a small sign where your eyes will greet it in the morning. It can be a folded slip of paper, a cup turned upside down, a book placed face down like a sleeping animal, any symbol that says, "Not yet." When the moment arrives, sit. If your mind wants choreography, give it the minimum. Hands resting, jaw unclenched, spine like a bamboo stalk that learned how to stand without scolding itself. If a thought insists it is urgent, nod as you would to a neighbor you like but do not owe. The room is not a courtroom. There will be no verdicts. If you need a sentence to lean on, read mine again in a whisper you can believe. If you wish to hear the river, stop stirring it. What changes first is not revelation, it is temperature. The heat of being chased cools. The shoulders drop the way trees drop, what they cannot carry into winter. The breath stops pretending to be an executive and remembers it is wind. Sometimes the only insight you get is that your hurry was allergic to accuracy. That is insight enough. Accuracy is a quiet animal. It enters only when noise agrees to wait outside. On the days I honored my 20 minutes, I noticed how often the thing I planned to argue for in the meeting dissolved into a better question, and how often the person I assumed would oppose me brought an offering when I stopped arriving with armor. Once, a dispute had swollen to the size of 3 provinces. Voices were sharp, timelines were blades, and every corridor repeated the same rumor. Someone must win. I walked to the quiet room and said nothing long enough to forget what victory looked like. When I returned, I did not enter the debate at the head of the table. I took a chair near the door and gave my attention away, as if it were bread. Something strange happened. 2 officials, men who liked to use certainty as a hammer, began to soften in each other's direction. It was not my charisma. It was the room that had followed me out, a small pocket of unhurried space expanding until other lungs could find it. Leadership is sometimes nothing more than smuggling silence into places where it has been exiled. Do not worry if your first attempts feel noisy. Minds keep momentum. When the wheels clatter, let them clatter. The point is not to manufacture a perfect stillness, but to become the kind of person who can stop stirring for long enough that stillness finds you anyway. If you cannot manage 20 minutes tomorrow, give 10. If 10 is too ambitious, give 5 and promise 20 on a calmer day. The promise itself begins to alter the landscape. The buffalo will not join you. He's already a quiet room with legs. There is a practical harvest to this practice. After a month of guarding that small pocket in my day, I needed fewer meetings because the ones I kept began to tell the truth faster. I wrote less and meant more. I found that the small, decisive gestures, one kind refusal spoken early, one request trimmed to its bone, one paragraph kept while 3 were returned to the river, acquired a gravity they lacked when I was sprinting. Silence taught me economy. It made me a cheaper person to manage and a more expensive person to fool. Let us set tomorrow's pocket together now, so it is not a wish, but a plan your body recognizes. Look at the clock and choose a time that does not pretend to be heroic. Late morning perhaps, or the early afternoon when your energy naturally lowers its sword. Picture the place. Picture yourself arriving without commentary, sitting without a performance, leaving without a certificate. Whisper the appointment, as if you were telling a friend where to meet you. I'll see you there. If your day rebels when it arrives, move the pocket, but do not cancel it. The river bends around a rock. It does not resign its job of reaching the sea. When I think of that room now, I do not remember its walls. I remember the moment air became a partner. I remember the bamboo outside deciding to make a small song, and how the song answered a problem I had not voiced. I remember standing to leave and noticing that my pride had remained seated. On the way back to the noise, I passed a hill I had climbed for years thinking it was the only mountain. The quiet had the indecency to show me another, larger, kinder, less famous. I would not have seen it if I had kept stirring my river. And so, in that quiet, a second mountain appeared. If you're still with me, let's drift deeper. Success shouts, meaning whispers like an embarrassed cricket. I spent a long season following the loud sound because it was easier to hear in crowded rooms. The court measured worth in echoes. Titles echoed, applause echoed, even anxiety echoed if it wore a robe with enough buttons. The first mountain was built of those echoes. Metrics, promotions, hungry staircases that promised the sky if you climbed fast enough. I climbed. The view was impressive and strangely airless, like standing inside a gong after it has been struck. What no one mentioned was the ringing in the bones afterward, the fatigue that looked like victory from a distance and like exile up close. Meaning arrived differently. It did not raise its hand. It touched my sleeve. I noticed it in the quiet room first, where I said nothing, and the river said everything it needed to say. The second mountain was there in the periphery, not taller, just truer. It did not ask me to abandon work. It asked me to align it. It did not despise achievement. It refused to worship it. The path up was less of a march and more of a returning. Walking back to the trail I had left when I confused applause for air, I realized usefulness without noise is the kind that endures because it doesn't have to be fed every hour. It is a lamp with a small flame and a large circle of warmth. When people ask how to find the second mountain, they often want a map with clear markers and heroic verbs. Maps are tidy, mountains are not. The second mountain shows itself when you stop making a performance out of altitude. It prefers verbs like listen, mend, introduce, teach, carry, and sometimes simply stay. I gave away a few loud obligations and adopted a few quiet tasks. They were not glamorous. I wrote letters no one would publish and they turned strangers into neighbors. I listened to a young scribe and found that his problem was not grammar but loneliness. I carried a box that was technically beneath my pay grade and noticed how much lighter I felt for the rest of the day. This startled me. Shouldn't carrying make a body heavier? Then I understood. The weight we put down is harder than the weight we pick up for each other. There is a sentence I wrote in those days that I keep reading aloud to keep myself honest. Let me give it to you now so your breath can carry it. As I wrote, climb what makes you lighter. If the ascent tightens your jaw, shrinks your generosity, and turns your evenings into debriefs with your ceiling, it is the wrong mountain. Even if the plaque at the top spells your name correctly. If the climb relaxes your shoulders and expands your kindness. Even in small ways, even on difficult days, you are near the second mountain, even if no one else can see it yet. Your century offers many first mountains in friendly packaging. The algorithm keeps a ledger of applause and sends you reports. The office calls its ladder a family and then invites you to sprint. Even love can turn into a staircase if you mistake performance for intimacy. Do not scold these structures. They are doing their best with the tools they understand. Just remember, you have other tools. When the first mountain starts shouting again, sales targets in carnival hats, the knighted calendar with too many errands, step sideways. Ask softly, what would be useful here that needs no witnesses? Often the answer is embarrassingly small. Reply with kindness to the message everyone avoided. Leave a note that makes a colleague's afternoon 5 degrees easier. Tell the truth in one sentence when a paragraph would hide you better. Introduce two people who can help each other, and then exit the story. These are second mountain switchbacks. They look like detours and behave like shortcuts. I did not resign from my life to find the second mountain. I refined my life until the climbing changed texture. I stopped speaking in rooms that needed my ears more than my opinions. I mentored a courier who thought no one saw him. His roads became straighter when his back did. I asked the young to teach me the tools that frightened me, and their faces rearranged when they realized I did not mind learning in public. Usefulness without noise is not the erasure of the self. It is the right sizing of the self, the humility of being part of a river, rather than the fantasy of being its source. You might worry that this orientation means smaller goals or dimmer dreams. Not at all. The second mountain does not forbid height. It forbids hollowness. It keeps asking the same rude question: lighter or heavier? Helpfulness that makes you bitter is theatre. Helpfulness that makes you generous is craft. The buffalo understands this without diagrams. He has two settings, chewing and walking, and both make the field better. When I am tempted to gild a good deed, I watch him and remember to let usefulness be ordinary. The ordinary saves more nights than grand gestures do. Let us make this practical without turning it into a performance. For 1 week, choose a helpful act that does not sharpen your reputation. Do it in a way that leaves little trace beyond the improvement itself. Perhaps you copy-edit the notice everyone will read and no one will thank. Perhaps you carry dishes after the meal before anyone can say you shouldn't. Perhaps you call the person who always calls others and ask how they are. Then listen until the question is finished. Do it quietly enough that your pride forgets to preen. The reward will not be applause. It will be the particular lightness of having spent your life like water, useful and mostly unnoticed, which is to say powerful in the Taoist sense. Career reinventions often begin here, not as a dramatic leap, but as a reweighting. You keep your craft but drop the pose. You keep your talent but aim it where it stops injuring your sleep. A designer chooses fewer clients and makes rooms that are easier to breathe in. A teacher rearranges the day so the small conversations can happen where grades are not looking. A manager learns the music of silence and discovers her team can sing without her conducting every bar. Mentoring appears naturally on the second mountain because you finally have a hand free. You become interested in successes rather than monuments. Monuments are heavy. Students walk beside you. On the road west, long after the gatekeeper asked for words I hadn't planned to leave, I realized that the text he wanted was not a ladder, but a lantern. Ladders tell you where to put your feet. Lanterns let you see your own feet and the next patch of ground. A lantern is a second mountain tool. It cannot carry you, but it can keep you from injuring the dark. That is all most of us need. A little light, a little breath, a little nudge toward the version of ourselves that is useful without ceremony. If you need a test before you sleep, try it now. Picture 2 tomorrows. In the first, you collect praise like bright coins, and arrive at night a little louder and a little lonelier. In the second, you spend yourself in 3 small ways that leave the world 5 degrees kinder, and you arrive at night quietly taller, as if your spine discovered it belonged to a tree. Which version of you would the bamboo recognize? Which one would the river be proud to carry? Choose that direction in a sentence you can keep. Then let the sentence rest on your pillow like a small lantern for the morning. The second mountain is not a rejection of the first. It is a reprioritization. Climb what makes you lighter, and you will notice something strange. The peaks that once demanded your resume begin to look like friendly hills, and the valleys that once frightened you turn into gardens. The way is economical about happiness. It wastes nothing. Even the hard switchbacks become part of the view. I'll leave you here with a soft promise tucked under your tongue. When you choose usefulness without noise, when you choose the small act over the grand announcement, when you climb toward lightness instead of height, you will discover that your nights weigh less and your mornings argue less with your feet. That is when the river moves you without shoving, and the work feels like belonging rather than bargaining. Lighter does not mean perfect. It means good enough to float. And that, seeker, is exactly where we go next. Perfection is a clever mask for fear. It bows with exquisite manners and then quietly locks the door from the inside. I learned this after too many evenings arguing with sentences that had already told the truth, and with days that refused to end because a corner somewhere still looked slightly wrong. The first time I chose enough on purpose, the night behaved like a relieved friend. The lamplight softened. My shoulders remembered their original height, and the buffalo, who distrusts unnecessary polishing, finally stopped sighing at me. I realized then that the way does not reward flawless edges. It rewards honest shapes that can float. Let me read you a line I once whispered to myself when I kept trying to finish what was designed to continue. A river never finishes. It keeps being a river. I'll read it again, slower, so your breath can copy its rhythm. A river that insists on being finished becomes a pond, and then a complaint. Life is current, not sculpture. Your work, your body, your house, your heart, they are all waters moving under weather. If you demand completion from what exists to be carried forward, you will exhaust yourself into stone and call it achievement. The Tao calls it drought. Creative perfectionism dresses like devotion. It offers late nights and vows of eternal revision. But devotion that forgets to rest becomes idolatry. You begin to worship the work instead of serving the truth inside it. I once polished a paragraph until all its edges gleamed, and all its life had left. The sentence was obedient and dead. When I stepped back, I noticed how the draft had been asking for breath, not brilliance. I closed the page at good enough, walked outside, and discovered the real improvement. The evening still belonged to me. The next morning, the paragraph returned like a friendly dog, less shiny, more alive. Productivity guilt is a cousin of this disease. It arrives after a decent day and whispers that a decent day is treason. You reach for another task, not because it matters, but because you are afraid of being ordinary. Ordinariness is not an insult. It is a place where people can meet you without appointments. When I stopped punishing myself for the mercy of being done, my work learned to end at the hour when thought becomes noise. Stopping is not failure. It is fidelity to the part of you that must be protected if any of this is to continue. Overtraining is perfectionism in the body's dialect. You run a little farther because enough feels like an accusation. You lift a little heavier because sufficiency seems lazy in a culture that worships the injury called more. The body will comply until it doesn't. I have bowed over many who mistook depletion for discipline. The river does not hate banks. It thanks them by resting against them. Your muscles need banks. Your mind needs banks. Enough is a bank. Without it, you flood the village you are trying to water. Tonight, I want you to practice a kind of courage that rarely trends. Set a stop line for your worries. Not the line you might set tomorrow in a mood of triumph, but the line that belongs to this very evening, with its actual shoulders and its actual heart. The stop line can be a time, when the kettle cools for the second time, when the window darkens to a particular blue, when the clock reaches an honest hour, and your kindness to yourself has not yet packed its bags. Or it can be a small, concrete threshold. One page sent, one sink cleared, one message answered, one drawer closed. You say aloud, "When I cross this, I am done for today." And then you defend that line like a gentle gatekeeper who has finally learned the difference between hospitality and trespass. People will tell you this is dangerous, that excellence requires unending attention, that the night belongs to those who squeeze it. And yet the finest work of my life arrived because I stopped strangling the lamp. The page that would not yield at 9 o'clock loosened at dawn like a knot that had slept. The conversation I was about to spoil with one more point healed itself while I was absent. The body that hurt because I demanded victory walked back to me with forgiveness when I offered it rest. There is a wisdom in enough that argument cannot manufacture. It isn't laziness. It is trust in continuity. I keep a small ritual for this, humble as a bowl. When I feel the old itch to add one more improvement to a night that has already given me its portion, I go to the window and let the air decide. If the air says stop, I stop. If I cannot hear the air, I listen to my jaw. Jaws are honest. If it is locked, the day is over. I write one line to mark the boundary. I leave the rest to morning water. Then I place the pen across the notebook like a bridge that refuses traffic. The world does not end. The world is pleased. It appoints sleep as its envoy, and sleep negotiates on my behalf with tomorrow. You may worry that enough will shrink you. It will not. It will concentrate you. A diluted river moves sand. A focused one shapes land. On the days I honored sufficiency, I found that my words traveled farther, my hands bruised less, my pride stopped insisting on overtime. Good enough released a reserve of attention I had been wasting on polishing mirrors in dark rooms. With that attention, I noticed my friends. With those friends, I did work that did not require applause to remain alive. The world wants your excellence, yes, but it also wants your return. Excellence without return is a spectacular goodbye. Sometimes the stop line will feel premature. That is part of its design. The anxious mind believes that relief must be earned with an invoice signed by everyone you have ever disappointed. Relief disagrees. It arrives when invited. Set the line. Keep the promise. If regret visits, let it sit by the door. Do not make up the couch. In the morning, you can offer it tea and ask it what it actually wants. Regret usually wants repair, not punishment. Repair is easier with sleep in your hands. Let's test the sentence together softly, so it becomes a key you can keep in your mouth. I will stop at enough and let the river continue. Speak it once. Notice what loosens. Maybe it is your shoulders. Maybe it is your calendar pretending to be destiny. Maybe it is the sensation that the room just leaned 1 degree toward kindness. That degree is where health returns. That degree is the difference between a life you supervise and a life you inhabit. There is humor in this too. The buffalo cannot pronounce optimization. He does not try. He chews until chewing is complete, and then stands facing the wind, with a competence that makes philosophy feel like a hobby. When I imitate him, the evening forgives me for my ambition, and the morning trusts me with its delicate light. Enough is not an insult to your gifts. It is the vow that keeps your gifts from becoming weapons you turn against yourself. I will leave you with the simplest measure I know. If stopping now makes you kinder to the person who must wake up in your body tomorrow, you have chosen well. If pushing past now makes you brittle to that person, you are worshipping a God that does not love you back. You are allowed to step down from that altar. The door is already open. The bed is not a court. It is a raft you can share with your own breath. When I finally learned to end at enough, something became visible I had missed for years. Without the glare of perfection in my eyes, I could see a crossing I had been circling. It was plain and sturdy, built not of brilliance but of small, repeatable kindnesses. The river had been pointing at it the whole time, while I polished stones on the shore. When I stopped at enough, I finally saw the bridge. Tonight, I want to show you something I built when my days kept washing me downstream. A bridge so simple it carried me even on the evenings when I had no pride left to carry myself. The secret is that the builder and the crosser are the same person. You, seeker, are both the hands that lay the planks and the feet that take the steps. Systems that carry you are not cages. They are kindness arranged in sequence. When I was young, I thought willpower was a god. It demanded sacrifices, sleep, gentleness, laughter, and in return, it offered exactly one thing: a reputation for being difficult to tire. Reputations are poor pillows. I kept waking up bruised by my own standards. Then, during one of those seasons, when even my buffalo looked disappointed in my drama, I began to notice the objects in my day that were already trying to help. A cup set on the desk where my hand wanted water. A book placed on the pillow before I left the room. A window latch that remembered my morning air. They were small bridges, and they wanted company. So I gave them company, one plank at a time, until the river of hours could be crossed without ceremony. Let me read you a line I once told a friend who mistook heroics for structure. As I told a friend, make your life your raft, then float on it. Hear it as wood hears varnish. A raft is not glamorous. It does not run on applause. It runs on repetition, ropes knotted in the same places each day, oars that know where the water is most cooperative. Your raft might be a teacup that lives by the kettle and insists you pause, or a lamp that turns itself off when evening has given all it can give, or a note on the door that reminds your hands to bring the bag already packed. These are not hacks, they are hospitality. You are making your life hospitable to the version of you who is tired at 6 p.m. and still worthy of being carried. I learned the most from the smallest habit, the one that seemed too humble to matter. After brushing my teeth, I opened the window and breathed 3 slow cycles while looking at the nearest piece of sky. That's all. The habit was a plank. Because it was a plank, it stayed. Because it stayed, other planks asked to join. A sink cleared before sleep so the morning could greet me with space. A notebook left open to the next blank line so the dawn didn't have to negotiate. shoes set by the door facing outward so my feet knew which way to go. The bridge did not arrive one afternoon with trumpets. It appeared like a shy animal that trusted my routine more than my promises. Of course, the modern world prefers horns to shy animals. It offers calendar nudges that shout and apps that pretend to be sages. Use the ones that behave like bells, not sirens. A bell makes a suggestion and then forgives you if you wave it away. I told my calendar to ring for the quiet room and to dim the lights around that ring. I asked it to remind me of water in the afternoons and not of news. I let the device close its own eyes at night so it couldn't open mine. Automations are just manners we teach our tools. When they keep us company without demanding a performance, they are worth the electricity. There is also the bridge we build between bodies. The friend who texts a single dot when they finish their first page. The colleague who leaves a door ajar at the hour you promised to walk. The person who doesn't ask for your excellence and therefore gets more of it. Accountability is an unlucky word. It sounds like being measured against a fence. I prefer rope. Tie a simple rope between two trees and you can cross the stream with wet ankles instead of a wet life. A message at dusk that says, window 3 breaths, a reply of done. No speeches, no charts, just rope between shores. You might ask how large a habit should be to qualify as a plank. Smaller than your pride thinks and larger than your excuses hope. The habit must survive bad weather. 2 minutes is a marvelous size. It is heavy enough to feel real and light enough to carry on nights that smell like failure. Read 1 page. Stretch for the length of a song you do not sing aloud. Put one thing back where it belongs, so your future hands don't curse your past feet. If the habit begins to demand costume and applause, you have built a stage, not a bridge. Bridges do not need audiences to remain themselves. The buffalo dislikes schedules with unnecessary ornaments. He respects only what chews. When my plans grew ornate, he would turn his great head toward the door as if to say, either go for the walk or write the page, but do not manufacture 13 steps to feel important. I took his advice and reduced my bridge habit to 1 sentence I could keep even in hotel rooms and borrowed days. After I set the cup down, I opened the window. The sentence is not noble. That is why it works. Nobility grows heavy at night. Weightless promises float. Your devices can help if you speak to them like responsible companions. Ask your calendar to place small stones in your river at the same hour each day. 2 minutes after the evening lamp, a bell for the notebook. 2 minutes before lunch, a bell for the cup. 2 minutes before the meeting, a bell that says breathe and ask 1 real question. Program your inbox to move noise into a quiet folder until the hour you have agreed to read noise. None of this makes you a machine. It returns your humanity to the spaces machines colonized while you were busy being admirable. Do not worry if you miss a plank. Bridges survive a missing board. You can step over the gap and replace it in the morning. What matters is not a perfect record, but a reliable shape. When the shape is there, your nervous system stops staging protests. It recognizes the view, the window, the breath, the cup, the card on the desk, with 1 true task written in a hand that forgives. Systems are simply repeated kindnesses that teach your body where safety lives. Once your body knows, the mind unpacks its luggage and stops trying to move in every direction at once. There is 1 more reason to build such a bridge. It outlasts moods. Moods are weather, bridges are carpentry. On grey days, When enthusiasm clocks out early, the planks allow you to cross anyway. On bright days, when ambition wants to sprint and forgets to breathe, the ropes keep you from stepping into the river out of joy and calling it strategy. You become less at the mercy of your temperature and more at the service of your day. The work benefits, the love benefits, even the version of you who meets the mirror benefits, because that person recognizes a home being built, not a tent being argued with. If you are tempted to build 12 bridges tonight, please don't. Build one that takes 2 minutes. Begin tomorrow. Attach it to something you already do without debate. After the teeth, open the window. After the shoes, step outside for the smallest walk and greet one tree like a neighbor. After the evening dish, prepare the morning cup. Repeat until the plank identifies itself as part of you. Then, if the river asks, add another. Your raft will thicken into something that can cross many weathers. And when it does, you will notice a soft pride, the kind that does not pose for the sky. It is the pride of a traveler who knows the bridge and the crosser are the same name written by different hands. I will leave you with the line that began this. Make your life your raft, then float on it. It is not the most poetic sentence I ever wrote, but it is one of the most faithful. And as you float, you will notice something bridges always remind us of when they are built without vanity. They must lead somewhere. A plank without a shore is a question without an answer. We have our bridge now. It carries us. Every bridge needs a shore, somewhere close to the ground. That is where we will go next, to learn the art of dwelling low, where humility meets ease and the heart stops echoing and starts hearing. Long before I vanished down the Western Road, I learned the posture that makes even loud days gentler, lower, not smaller, not apologetic, just nearer to where life is actually happening. High places are exciting, low places are accurate. When your feet remember soil, your ideas stop pretending to be thunder and begin behaving like rain. I came to love doorsteps more than staircases, courtyards more than balconies. The first step down from pride more than the last step up to recognition. The buffalo, who is a specialist in ground, approved of this research by continuing to be a buffalo within arm's reach. When I bent to scratch the dust from my sandals, he would lean his great head against my shoulder as if to say, "There, now you belong to something." I wrote a sentence for myself in that season, a line I still read aloud whenever I feel my thoughts trying to build podiums. As I wrote, "Live close to the earth and far from your own echo." Let me give it to you in the voice that taught me to keep it, slow, like a hand smoothing grain. Live close to the earth and far from your own echo. The earth is what is true without your decoration. The wooden table that holds your cup, the cool tile under your heel, the rosemary sprig you bruise between your fingers until memory remembers its childhood. Your echo is the performance you've already heard yourself give 3 times today, the cleverness that wants rehearsal more than connection. When I dragged my echo through every room, rooms got tired. When I stepped down into what the floor knew, rooms forgave me and began to speak. Staying near the ground is an attitude disguised as geography. It is the angle of your eyes when you leave a building, and the first thing you check is not who saw you, but whether the light has changed. It is how you answer a stranger without glancing over their shoulder to see if fame is approaching. It is whether you let the small bird hop twice on the railing before you pass, simply because it has seniority in that moment. The river loves low places because low places love the river. When pride holds its chin too high, water cannot find you. When you lower the chin, the current arrives as if it had been waiting for your politeness. Your century is clever with clouds and stingy with dirt. There is always another platform to stand on, another echo chamber disguised as friendship, another tower view priced in anxiety. I am not opposed to height. I am opposed to altitude sickness. The remedy is not a manifesto. It is a micro-bend toward the real. Step outside for 1 minute between tasks and let the sun grade your thoughts without comment. Touch bark and remember the speed of wood. Lean your elbows on a railing and let traffic finish a sentence for you. You are not wasting time. You are returning to a pressure where the heart is designed to beat. Sometimes dwelling low means letting yourself be seen by those who know nothing about your echo. There was a baker who stacked warm buns at dawn with a competence that made my arguments feel like hobbies. I learned more about the way from his wrists than from the court's oratory. His shop smelled like decisions that didn't hurt anyone. I would stand in his doorway and let the scent tell me what to do next. Carry fewer opinions, carry more baskets. Neighboring is a low art. It rescues entire weeks. Greet the person who sweeps your street as if they organize the weather, which, in a way, they do. Learn the name of the child who hangs from the stair rail and give them a job they can do well. Hold the door until it says thank you. These are not errands, they are repairs. Gratitude is simply ground spoken aloud, not a ledger, not a performance. A noticing that bends you back toward what feeds you. At night, when my mind had begun drafting speeches to impress the shadows, I learned to disarm it with 3 small acknowledgements spoken like pebbles dropped into a bowl. 1 sight, 1 sound, 1 kindness. The sight might be as ordinary as steam scribbling a letter above the cup, or as brief as the lantern's soft triangle on the floorboards. The sound could be the distant conversation of 2 bicycles, or the almost silence that bamboo makes when wind negotiates gently. The kindness might belong to a stranger who waited half a breath longer to let me pass at the gate, or to myself when I did not argue with a yawn. This trio lowered me. Lowered is safer than elevated when sleep is the destination. When your gratitude lives in the first inch of air above a table, the body recognizes home. There is a reason temples sit on hills, but prayer happens with knees close to dirt. Lowering is not humiliation, it is calibration. Months before I left the city, a woman from the market taught me how to read the day by the weight of her basket. When it was too heavy, conversation grew short and coins clicked like teeth. When it was balanced, she told jokes that sounded like fresh water. "We carry lower," she said, and shifted the strap from shoulder to hip. I tried it with my own hours. I stopped carrying concerns with my head, which complained, and started carrying them with my hands, which got on with it. Hands are not interested in echo. Hands like bread and doors and the click of a latch when something real is closed for the evening. Dwelling near the ground also changed the way I used skill. Talent is a ladder. It will tempt you to climb until the air gets thin. Skill, when it has learned humility, becomes a wrist. Wrists work close to surfaces. They turn knives into helpers and brushes into truth-tellers. When I felt my voice trying to fill the sky, I brought it down to wrist height and asked it to serve a single sentence. The sentence would either hold or confess its need for another day. Either way, my pride stopped panting. The buffalo likes wrists. He trusts them to scratch the spot he cannot reach, which is the best review I have ever received. If your life has been hovering, if your thoughts have grown tall and thin and suspicious of ordinary chairs, come back down this evening. Sit where your feet can feel the floor without reaching. Slide one palm along the table's edge and let the wood remind you of forests you did not plant, yet benefit from daily. Name your gratitude trio out loud, not as a spell, but as an inventory that keeps you honest. One sight, the moon imitating a coin on the neighbor's roof. One sound, the soft argument of the kettle deciding to boil. One kindness, the way your own breath forgave you after a sharp word and kept working anyway. The room will lower itself in response. Doors, when spoken to gently, like to become quieter doors. Humility is not a costume you put on for applause. It is the weight shared among many things. Low posture lets the world pass through you without needing to break either of you. When officials complained that I had stopped aiming for the highest balcony, I smiled and offered them a seat on the steps. Steps are where truth catches its breath. On steps, victories and losses become stories instead of identities. On steps, the child can interrupt the governor and nobody dies. The way, I have found, is a staircase that prefers to be sat on. I would be lying if I said I stayed still once I discovered the comfort of ground. I did not. Stillness taught me to walk differently. Proximity to life made movement kinder. I kept visiting the baker. I kept bowing to bamboo. I kept choosing the path that let my sandals speak more than my reputation. And then I kept going, because proximity is not a single place but a habit of belonging wherever your feet are honest. The ground does not beg you to settle. It invites you to carry its patience into motion. Which is why, when the path tilted west and the horizon behaved like a door slightly ajar, I did not resist. I stepped through with my chin lowered, my wrists ready, and my gratitude already counted. I kept moving and learned that home is a verb. If your mind is still wandering, let it. Homes often have wheels in the heart. Mine did. The wheels were quiet, well oiled by rivers, and the kind of moonlight that makes even old roads look newly washed. When I finally turned west, I did not slam any doors. I closed them as one closes a book one intends to lend, marking the page with a ribbon of gratitude. People later called it vanishing, as if I had slipped through a trick in the light. I did not vanish. I changed the verb. Leaving stopped being an act of disappearance and became the way a current continues after a bend. The buffalo came with me, of course, chewing, as if every mile were a meadow. His confidence in moving without drama taught me more than my maps ever did. There is a story you may know, where a gatekeeper asked for pages before he would lift the bar. That night, my feet understood something my titles had avoided. Home is not a noun waiting at a fixed coordinate. It is a sentence you keep speaking while the landscape nods in comprehension. The road did not yank me forward. It invited me to match its pace. I look back often, not out of regret, but so my last glance could remain a blessing instead of a wound. The city behind me kept living, which was evidence enough that I had not been its hinge. You will find this too, seeker, when you change addresses or jobs or names. The world does not collapse, it rearranges. Where you stand becomes another person's horizon, and if you left with care, your absence feels like clean air, not a pulled route. When I needed to explain this to myself, I wrote a line and kept it in my sleeve. Let me read it to you now, as I confessed it then. I did not disappear, I dissolved into the way. Dissolving is not erasing. it's belonging better. Imagine a sugar cube insisting on remaining cubic inside a cup of tea. It would be righteous and useless. When it dissolves, the whole cup changes character. Movement asks us to trade a little shape for more sweetness. I found that when I stopped fighting to be the fixed thing in every room, I could become the warmth of the room itself. People remembered less of my outline and more of the ease that arrived with me. That felt like a credible measure of home. Your century suffers many transitions. Boxes labelled with the old address. Visas stamped with languages your mouth has not yet learned. Relationships that end without villains because growth chooses different seasons for different trees. Treat the threshold kindly. Wrap your rituals first. A window open 3 hand widths at morning is light enough to pack. A bowl to set your thoughts in is lighter still. If you carry the sentence that saves you, tonight, I am simply a breathing being. You carry a key that fits in any door. I have slept in palaces and in rooms that did not deserve the word, and the only difference that finally mattered was whether my breath was allowed to behave like weather. Give it permission, and any roof will audition successfully for home. Endings without drama are not fashionable. They do not collect speeches, but they are merciful. And mercy is a furniture that travels well. You will be tempted to make a noise so the departure feels earned. Noise is cheaper than love. If you must leave, try leaving the way a lantern is carried, steady, shielding the flame, paying attention to the wind, not because you fear it, but because you respect what both of you are for. Prepare what I came to call a compassionate goodbye. The kind you write, but do not send. Sit where the room can lend you its patience. Place the person, the city, the role, the decade on the chair across from you. Say thank you without negotiating the invoice. Name the gift honestly and the hurt briefly. Ask forgiveness for the ways you were small, and offer forgiveness for the ways they could not be larger. Then bless them. Fold the paper. Keep it where only tenderness can reach. The buffalo sniffs at these letters with approval. He likes good ruminants, and grief well chewed is a nutritious thing. On the western road, the landscape instructed me in custody and release. I carried little: a cup, a notebook, a sentence that could carry me. Everything else I allowed to ride as long as it wished, and then step off at the next village. I learned to be generous with benches. Sit, I would tell an attachment. We have walked far together. Rest here. Some sat and waved. Some insisted on following and proved a mile later that they had mistaken obligation for love. Obligation gets tired quickly when it is not married to affection. It asked to be left, and I obliged it. What remained walked lighter and made better conversation. Home kept happening wherever I noticed and arranged. This is the secret of moving without breaking yourself. You become an arranger of small kindnesses that teach the body to trust new air. In a borrowed room, I placed the cup where morning would find it without searching. On a strange street, I greeted one tree until it started greeting back. Yes, trees can learn faces, especially faces that lower their pride. In a town that did not know my name, I learned the name of the person who wiped the tables and discovered that belonging is not fame. It is recognition exchanged without invoice. Each act was small enough to be accused of not mattering. Each act was a plank, and the raft that was my life floated again. There is also the matter of those who prefer a story with a culprit. Leaving makes some people itch. They will ask for explanations more ornate than the truth can provide. Offer them civility and no legend. Legends are heavy to carry and easy to burn. The Tao I trust does not recruit villains to make my movements seem noble. If pressed, I borrow the river's vocabulary. I am following a current that feels honest. I am making room where my breath behaves kindly. If they insist on turning this into an indictment, bless their appetite for theatre and keep walking. As I told myself, and now tell you, not all departures are escapes. Many are returns to a pace your heart can keep. The buffalo disliked drama because drama wastes chewing time. He taught me to mark new places with practical reverence. We would arrive at dusk, and instead of announcing ourselves to whatever spirits organized the neighborhood, we would sweep a corner, fill the water bowl, open the window, and sit with our backs against the wall until the room could trust us. Practical reverence turns exile into hospitality. It tells the floorboards, I will walk gently here. It tells the neighbors, I am interested in the angle of your light. It tells the self, we have not lost anything essential. We are expanding the definition of where it lives. See how movement reforms identity without erasing it. The coats you hung are easier to carry when you are not also carrying the house that once justified them. Roles change flavors from city to city. Essence keeps its own recipe. I found I could be kinder on the road because fewer people were auditioning for my attention, and I was too tired to audition for theirs. Tired can be honest. Honesty makes decent neighbors. When loneliness came, and it does, like weather not yet fluent in your language, I threw a little party of two, the river practice and the gratitude trio. After we counted a sight, a sound, a kindness, the room always knew my name a bit better. It may seem strange to speak so softly about leaving in a world that has made migration a wound for many. Softness does not trivialize the hard parts. It gives them a bed. Move when you must, not to prove something, but to continue being someone. If you cannot move, or if movement has been taken from you, remember that home is also a way of treating your hours. You can relocate your attention even when your body must stay. Open the window where the air is thin. Arrange the cup where mercy can find it. Write the unsent goodbye to a season that will not let you go, and discover that the letter opens its own gate. I keep returning to that line because it keeps returning me to myself. I did not disappear. I dissolved into the way. I don't ask you to believe it on principle. Taste it. Let one thing tonight be less fixed and more carried. Let one explanation you owe the world be replaced with a presence you can maintain. Let one corner of the room show you how to belong by standing nearby until it remembers you. If the mind wanders, smile. Some homes are built of wandering. The wheels in your heart are not a defect. They are the craft that brings you to the places that can love you accurately. We are almost at the end of our night, seeker, where the road narrows until the only luggage allowed is breath. If you listen closely, the bamboo is finishing its small song. The cup is cooling, and the buffalo, who has never once pretended to be a lighthouse, is folding his legs into the ground with the authority of someone who understands arrival. The rest is a soft crossing I want to make with you. No maps, no speeches, only the kind of guidance that behaves like sleep teaching a tide how to rise. And now, seeker, it's time for the softest closing I know. Night has brought us to the softest shore, seeker. The lantern on the table is a tired star. The window a small doorway the moon remembers. And the bamboo outside is finishing a song only patient ears can keep. We have walked together from storm to bowl, from pushing to timing, from costumes to skin. Now even the helpful words grow shy. The room would like to speak on its own. Come close to the edge of lying down. Let the bed be the quiet raft you built without bragging. Feel how it agrees to carry you without demanding a speech. I'll keep my voice low, then lower, the way rivers talk when they are almost asleep. As I once whispered by the river, let me read it to you, so the sentence finds its home inside your chest. Close your eyes. Be the bowl. Let the night pour gently. Wake empty and full. The bowl has no ambition. It does not chase the sky. It receives it. Somewhere a buffalo folds his legs into the earth with the confidence of someone who understands gravity. Somewhere the bamboo bends once more and calls it a day. Somewhere the moon checks its reflection in a quiet window and decides to leave us to our peace. Thoughts may still wander in, the late guess who misread the hour. I learned long ago not to evict them. I would give each one a leaf, green and ordinary, and send it downstream. The noisy thoughts went first, proud of their noise. The shy ones followed, polite as dusk. Some leaves vanished around a bend without ceremony. Others circled once, the way goodbyes circle when they are not yet finished. None needed maps. Water knows the way out. On such nights the moon kept its appointment at the sill, and the room behaved like a lake that had learned manners. The air wrote little letters no one had to read. The floor promised, in its wooden language, I will still be here when you wake. The ceiling remembered how to be sky without auditioning for thunder. My body remembered it was a valley, wide, low, friendly to rivers, and did not insist on being a mountain. Once, traveling west, I paused by a pond so calm the stars felt seen. I dropped a small stone, the kind that keeps a pocket honest. Rings opened and widened, then softened, then forgot their names. I tried to count them, and the numbers themselves drifted off, relieved to be relieved. That is how sleep approaches in good company. Not as a conquest, but as circles, accepting their own vanishing. If another thought knocks, one of those heavy ones that pretends to be a door, I recall how the river treats a boulder too large to lift. It goes around again and again until the stone agrees to be round. I never wrote a doctrine about it. Water is the opposite of a manifesto. It goes on not injuring what it passes, and by morning everything has become softer, including the reasons I thought I needed to stay awake. I am still here, quieter now. The buffalo in my memory has become a soft hill, breathing like a bellows tuned to kindness. The bamboo outside your window takes your quiet as a compliment and answers with its own. The moon watches without keeping score. You may rest inside all this without earning it. Let the bowl do the holding. Tonight is not a rehearsal for a better self. Tonight is the self being carried exactly as it is by a river that never needed your help to find the sea. On nights when sleep once felt like an exam, I made a small arrangement with the anxious part of me. I asked it to sit at the far window and keep a simple watch. Listen for the farthest sound. A hush, a hum. One cricket with stage fright. The patrol did its job so carefully, it forgot to wake me with its report. Morning found the chair empty and the cup warm again, as if someone had stayed up being kind. I will leave you with the line that opened this closing, because circles deserve to meet themselves, and because circles know how to end. Close your eyes. Be the bowl. Let the night pour gently. Wake empty and full. Empty of the noise that mistook itself for necessity. full of the quiet that makes ordinary mornings generous. Dawn will find you unarmored and be grateful. And if you open the window by an inch and thank the air, it will pretend surprise and then show you how patient it was while you slept. The river is ready to carry you the rest of the way, seeker. My voice will step back now and let the water do the teaching only water can do. I invite you now to close your eyes and begin this journey that will soon carry you into the arms of Morpheus.